Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, especially now that there's so much camera-driven technology,
Yes.
right? And like, if only we can see it, even though we're halfway across the world, it would change everything in our business. And especially when it comes to trying to reduce cost, reduce waste, and having like boots on the ground without having boots on the ground. I can just see the multitude of applications.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting for myself and even the audience, like I didn't even know this, but you typically think about energy of either fossil fuels or nuclear, or solar, things like that. I never really thought about that angle of like chemical reactions. So
Mhm.
how does that how does that chemical reaction actually produce the power? That I'm really interested about that one.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there's two parts to that. The way that the fuel cell itself produces power is there's a platinum catalyst internal to the unit. So it's using either hydrogen or it's using methanol as the energy input. The energy output is going to be power, small amount of water vapor, small amount of CO2, and then DC power. What we're typically doing when we're looking at the methanol fuel cell specifically, we're incorporating renewables. So you'll have your solar array, you'll have your battery bank. Sometimes you can use wind as well. And then what the fuel cell does is it's monitoring the state of charge on your battery bank that you'd have in that system. So we're allowing you to lead with a renewable energy source, but we're giving you the reliability with the fuel cell on the back end acting as supplemental power. So it starts and stopped based on battery voltage when solar can't keep up.
Oh, that's very, very cool. So if you had to compare between, for example, like a diesel generator that's charging a bank of batteries when it needs to, we all kind of understand how long a tank lasts, right? So when it comes to this technology, have you what can you say about the overall length that you're able to rely on that unit before you have to do any kind of maintenance or any kind of interception?
Yeah, so again, there's probably two ways to look at that. When you look at a methanol-based system, you're looking at energy density in the methanol. So for example, let's say you had a battery bank and you had a 50-watt continuous load on that battery bank. You're going to have 31 days of power in one single fuel cartridge that the fuel cell would consume. Generally speaking, you have at a minimum 2 cartridges in a setup. So that's about a month of autonomy in the
Okay.
fuel. And if you compare that footprint back to diesel, that's a massive a difference in footprint.
It's probably a couple of days on diesel, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the energy density is a big deal there.
Oh, that's very, very cool. So, I mean, we touched on it a little bit earlier about the inspirations for new products and different ways to bring the solution to market and so on. And then, as I heard, you've got a new product that you want to talk about today of things that you're putting out there.
Yeah, so hydrogen is the newest, I guess you could say, addition to our portfolio.
Okay.
So a couple years ago when we did the original podcast, we had just announced our 2.5 kilowatt module. So we've expanded that. Just recently, in Europe, we've announced our H2 genset, which went from trial phase, and now that's actually going into mass production, which is really exciting. And then this year at the Hanover Fair, we just announced our new H2 power pack. And so that power pack is a full plug and play system, and that starts at 50 kilowatts of power
Oh boy.
and scales up to 200, which is really exciting because, like I said before, we're starting to get pulled into higher power applications, whereas we've always kind of played in the lower power end historically with methanol, and hydrogen just brings us into a totally different territory.
Absolutely. I mean, I can see it now. Like there's so many opportunities for like near surface deposits
Mhm.
that there's stuff there, but it's not necessarily too feasible to go get it because of the infrastructure that's required to go get it. I mean, I could see this playing in really, really well on those smaller ore bodies that you need that support around you to go capture the ore that maybe would have never been visible, 5 years or even 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
With this new technology. So it's pretty exciting. Outside of that, I mean, I keep getting really excited about this stuff because it is a really cool technology, especially being in a technology space myself. It's like, how do I get there?
Yeah.
How do I put my stuff there? So it's really cool to see how this technology has been forming and putting together. So as far as the conversation, especially with everybody focused on reducing their emissions, being mindful on the green outputs of their environments, and mining's, I think they're doing a really good job at keeping that conversation moving forward. How's that conversation been received with the type of products you're bringing in contrast to what they've been exposed to in the past, right?
Yeah. So when you switch from an emission producing power source and you go over to a fuel cell technology, generally speaking, it's about a 99% reduction in carbon emissions. So that alone is really attractive for shareholders when companies are talking about their environmental footprint, their ESG profile. But when you actually look at the operational expense and the overall total cost of ownership on our solution, that's an added benefit as well, because I'm limiting the amount of times an operator needs to go out to site to baby a system. You're not doing oil changes, you're not doing the routine maintenance like you would on a generator. So in saying that, you limit the amount of touch points on that power system, which further makes the total cost of ownership a lot more attractive and then continues to reduce the carbon footprint.